afraid to put me. I thought about it, but I was afraid to put me to work. Long as
Having
it
put
ain't
stuff
pain.
in the dumpster for you. Sure.
Oh, I'm sure.
They moved all the dirt.
I'll just throw it
Probably
again.
just burn and grow. There's nothing in there. The wind?
Oh.
Well, I knew there was.
Each day. Well, all our old medical records are still in there on
But
the
they
yellow
were.
pad.
Because I know when they knocked it down, you could see paper and all. It's ready to go. Hopefully it's buried well now. Well, it would have gone to the transfer station, right? So it's off in South Carolina somewhere now. Found papers in the ground.
Where you know this morning. That's the that's the standard I want to follow. That seems like okay, let's all stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Someone would make a motion to approve our agenda, please. Second.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Comment, do we have anybody call up, I think?
I did.
Okay, so come on then.
Did you, I sent, to share, did you get that, Daniel? Okay, I have, just to share with you folks today, an annual report from the farmer's market for 2023. And I have on the screen where you can see that. Just some pieces of information that I thought that would be of interest to you. Market sales this year. Snap card transactions, we had 205, Snap dollars, 63, 62.50, which was a little down from last year, but there was some change in Snap approval. So there were fewer people that had Snap to use last year. So I was not surprised that it was down a tad. So after doubling, we had $12,725 worth of food that went out to our community. The credit and debit dollar swipes was almost 32,000. So our estimated total sales this year was around $140,000 into our local economy. Our attendance was very good. Best we can tell, we had 9,855 people come through the market this year. I'm sure that's an undercount because every week, you're busy and whoever's doing the head count suddenly realizes that 15 people have gone by and they've not clicked them in. So I'm sure we had more than that. With our vendors, we had an average of 23 each week. Our lowest was 18, which was awesome because there have been years when our lowest was like 9 or 8 vendors. So we're hanging in there, even in the off season, with a good number of vendors. The high was 32. We could not take any more at that point because of the booths that are used up for the running of the market. So we can't have any more than 32 vendors. There were over 1,000 people. Well, I didn't get this on your copy, but there were over 1,000 people that visited the demonstration kitchen this year, and the Kids Zone had 268 participants. So we had good attendance in all of our special programs. We had quite a few special events this year as well, and you can see some of them listed there. Pollinator Day. We had Medicare information, a couple of different weekends there. Squash-a-rama. There's a festival to celebrate the lowly summer squash that we are all having abundance of, and we need new ideas of things to do with it. So we have that festival. We celebrated National Farmers Market Week and the 15th anniversary celebration. The Big Give is a fundraiser for Interfaith Assistance Ministries. You can see on down through there, we had quite a lot. And the market is represented well on WLOS TV Carolina Kitchen. At this point in time, I think we have about 16 episodes that they show from our chef. And the last thing is the young entrepreneurs. I think that's at the bottom of the screen. We had 13 children participate in our young entrepreneur program this year, which is awesome. There were more that were interested, but we couldn't take any more. We had 3 young folks that went through the advanced program, and we have anticipation of more next season wanting to do that again. So I'm getting ready to fill out a grant application so that we can keep that program going. So at the market this year, we had 46 days that we had young entrepreneurs selling at the market. So all in all, I think it was an awesome season. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else here for public comment? Somebody make a motion to approve our consent agenda, please.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Sanders, second.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Regular agenda, agricultural lease. Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and Happy New Year. Hard to believe it's 2024 already, but here we are. Your first item on your regular agenda is an agricultural lease for what we're calling the former Johnston property, which are the 2 parcels the town acquired last summer. I have spoken with Mr. Johnson, the former owner, and he has expressed interest in leasing that property back from the town to grow corn. So in your packet is a copy of that lease that we've prepared. This is a lease agreement that we have used for prior ag leases the town has entered into, and it was simply modified to account for the new parcel identification numbers, owner information, acreage, things of that nature. Mr. Johnston is offering $100 an acre. A quick caveat to this was not competitively bid, meaning we can lease it to Mr. Johnston for 1 year with no intention of renewing it. If we want to do a longer term than that, then we would just competitively bid the lease and it would go to the highest bidder. And then that lease could be structured with rights for renewal and things of that nature. But at this point, we're only looking at the next 12 months. So the total lease payment would be $6,950. It's based on the total acreage. The only thing that we did not fill in is on the very last page of the lease, there's under letter I, landlord and tenant agree to, and it's only hay or corn is highlighted right now. He had talked about doing corn, whether or not you want to limit it to corn or hay or both, or prohibit certain things. It's just entirely up to you, but it seems like corn would be a good fit next door. Recommendation is to approve the agreement with Mr. Johnston. Your attorney has not reviewed this yet, although she drafted the original. So I would suggest that you approve it with the condition that the attorney gives it the green light. And she will be here in closed session later on this evening. If you want to, excuse me, after closed session, if you want to have that conversation with her.
Anyone got any questions on this? Staff, or each other, or whatever?
Do we have any indication how much of the property they plan to crop? Obviously a portion of the dairy was in pasture, and I don't know if we have any indication that they're going to sod bust and come in with a row crop, or
I don't have that answer. We can find out before you approve it if you're more comfortable.
the only concern I didn't see in the lease was if the tenant intends to actually cultivate the floodplain and the floodway, then, and only because we do it on our farm with tenants, is ask for a cover crop during the winter months for reasons we just saw on Tuesday, that not the whole farm has to be in the cover crop unless they so choose, but those areas that are generally in the floodplain, if there's no crop in sometime like January, when we have an event like we had, you can lose a tremendous amount of soil that can be prevented by just putting out a couple $100 worth of cover crop.
And this just includes the fields, it doesn't include the barn
That's
area
right.
and that.
Mhm.
Anything else? Y'all, feel comfortable making a motion where the approval of the attorney looking at it? Maybe, add in a cover crop on the flooded areas. Probably add it, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it could appear in that section I for all that matter. I mean, the attorney may have another suggestion, but since that's sort of under construction, but I would make a motion that the town move into a ag lease agreement with Mr. Johnston, dependent upon the attorney's input and additional language requiring cover crop in the floodplain.
Got a motion, how about a second?
I'll second that.
Any more discussion before moving on? All in favor?
Aye.
Move on to the pay study when y'all get caught up.
Mayor and council, the pay study was completed last month for full-time employees, and all the paperwork has been completed and turned into payroll folks for processing, and that was effective July 1st. At that conversation in December, the request was made that we study the part-time positions as well. I reached back out to Mr. Hill, the gentleman we worked with for the full-time staff, and as of preparing the staff report on Monday, we did not have data available. We have some preliminary information for you, but I'd rather wait and give you the full list of detail before we request any changes. So I'm recommending that we table this for 2 more weeks until we can get all the information in front of you.
Looking through this right quick, does anybody need any more, think of anything else that might need to ask Mr. Hill while we're waiting on him anyway?
I'm good.
Somebody make a motion to, table this to, you need it by motion, right?
Mhm.
Table,
Please.
table it to, you feel good about the next meeting?
Mhm.
I'll make a motion that we table this until the next meeting.
Second.
I'll second the motion.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to the dairy shed, future park park.
This item was added to the agenda after Ms. Good and I spoke I think it was last week, about the use of the dairy shed building, I guess for the farm market. I think that was the intention. So Sandra, I'm gonna hand this off to you uh, and just talk to the board about what you want to do over there.
Okay. Well, we've talked about it, and I think they were trying to get some stuff taken care of to make sure that the building was stable. Did they ever get the inspectors out?
Yeah, we have met with the structural engineer. So at this point, what we're waiting on is the footers to get dug out. So the farm market has a volunteer that has volunteered to do that for us, Mr. John Case. So as soon as he comes in and digs out those footers, we've already done. We had to remove some ceiling so we could see some of the ceiling joists and wall joists. So that's been done. So at this point, we're just waiting on Mr. Case to dig out those footers so they can come back and do their evaluation.
Okay, how long, once we get that done and if it's found stable, how long would it be before we could start moving forward with it?
It would completely depend on what that report says and what they find structurally wrong with it, I guess.
So they haven't give you any feedback on any structural at all. They're gonna tie it all into one bundle.
There's, generally, there's definitely some joists. Look, that visually, like when we've done our walkthroughs, you can see that there's some joists up top that everything is repairable, but he'll give us an in-depth report on what would need to be replaced, what would need to be repaired, what our loads would be as far as if we need to hang lights, if we need to do all those sort of things. And so the big thing that they really need to look at is the footers. And so that's what we're waiting on.
Okay. Have y'all talked to Mr. Case?
Not recently because we didn't know if the town was ready for us to ask him. Because we've talked to some volunteers months ago about things and we haven't needed them. So I'll talk to him this evening. Do we know how many footers need to be dug out?
Yeah, Mr. Case met with town staff and the structural engineer, so
Okay.
he's been briefed on exactly what he needs to
All
do.
right, I'll reach out to him tonight and tell him we're ready to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Is there anything else y'all think we need to do?
You just have to give us what your ultimate goal will be, just to make sure if that's what we're gonna be able to fulfill it or not,
Well,
I know what your,
I was
Main
hoping that we would get them in and have it there for this summer, this spring.
I guess it depends on what they come back with, quick to get somebody motivated. Have y'all been over and seen the grid pattern and, do y'all feel like I do, that would have to be either capped over or something? I don't, do you think
Yeah,
you
well,
think it'd be fine?
I think it'd be fine.
Okay.
I mean, it's no different than walking on gravel.
Okay.
I think all it needs is a little pressure washing and paint and a couple of scabs on the roof,
you. Get rid of all,
a little Clorox.
get rid of all the scrap metal and all that.
I don't know exactly, help me out here, how this works. So if they're having let's say they're having an event over there,
Mm-hmm.
being the farmer's market. Somebody does slip fall.
Mm-hmm.
Is it on us? Is it on them? Where are we at with that?
Right.
Because it's not like it's not gonna be a perfect situation
Mhm.
day one where I feel comfortable.
Right. I mean, I would speak with you. I would suggest we speak with your attorney
Okay.
for a final decision, but in my initial reaction is we would prepare some sort of lease arrangement with the farm market so that the liability is on them the days that they're hosting their events, and then the rest of the week, I guess it would be revert back to the town. But I think that's probably your safest approach to that.
And the market, we do carry a liability policy for such stuff.
Exactly.
I do want to just caution the board with the timeline on this. We're all very supportive of the market going over there. But what improvements might need to be made to that building, or anything in terms of parking, we're going to be hard pressed to make much progress between now and when the market opens. So I just want the board to be fully aware of that. at this point.
Y'all typically open on first Saturday in May.
What we had discussed before, I believe, was using the lower parking lot over here on Saturday mornings and having it to where, they could cross over and go in and maybe have some handicap parking over there, I believe is what we had discussed. So
Yeah.
that was,
Park line.
right.
Yeah, we had run that across.
Can I just, a quick thought on that though, is we're already planning for spring soccer, and he would not be able to host the farm market and the number of soccer games we've been hosting. And so we are already in the planning process for that. So if we do not intend to let if we don't plan to have soccer here, we would need to let them know as soon as possible.
Well, didn't we have that grading done back there so it could be open field and overflow parking?
That project's not been complete yet, and until we get into grass growing season, maybe by May, we have it stable enough where we can use that for overflow parking.
Yeah. When does soccer start?
March 1st, the first week of March.
Okay.
I envision it's gonna be a pretty good undertaking to make this happen. Till probably midsummer, if the building structure is sound. I do know there's some roof panels and stuff that leaks. I don't know if it's screws or whatever, but, I'm interested to see what that report says. Sure.
Before they inspect and stuff, do they need that building cleaned out?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Would it help?
I don't know. I think they've done looked at most of that. I think they're just waiting on the foot detail now, right? See what's actually holding that point up.
Right, yeah, so the big thing they need to see at this point is the footers. So they need to dig out every one of those posts so he can see the bolts and get them for ratings and check for damages and things like that. So essentially the dirt needs to get moved, and then it'll obviously have to be buried back once they complete the inspection.
Once we get to that point, it'll basically be cleaning, showing up, and then paint.
Well, there's numerous volunteers throughout the community that have volunteered to help clean and.
The thing is at this point, till we get that, what he said we need to do, so we may have to go in there and temporarily hold something up and change the footing pads underneath the red eye. If I remember correctly, Jeff was telling us how corrosive the urine off the cattle can be to the steel and the bolts and everything.
No, that's correct.
Okay, well, so we need to get John over there as soon as possible to get that done. And once he starts, how long does it take the inspector to get out here?
That's a trick question. I mean, she's worked with him. If you're asking me on ones I have to use, they'll drive you crazy. Like, they'll tell you they're coming and they don't ever get there. And once they get there, getting to the court's another issue. I'll let her tell you who she's working with.
He knows how important it is, have let him know that this is something that we're really looking to get somewhat quickly. He said once the footers are dug out, to give them about a week's notice for them to come back out, actually do the inspections, do their testing, ratings of everything. After that, he didn't indicate how long the report itself would actually take, but I would say at best probably a month once he comes and does the.
If he's doing a full on the whole building.
Yeah, every building, so the rafters, everything he's gonna look at.
Is there any way we could separate out that shed so that we got a report back on that quicker?
Some will and some won't.
I can certainly ask. It could potentially it's gonna cost more money because it's more trips out here. If he just does the shed first, does that report, it would just be an amendment of the contract, and I'm just not sure what his timeline would be, but if that's something you all wish to look into, I'd certainly be willing to ask.
May I ask who's doing?
It's a Mercer Engineering Group. They are.
Is that the one that Jeff works for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Randy, you got something?
So I was just gonna say that I don't want to dampen anybody's enthusiasm about getting this done this year or anything, but whenever you do anything for a municipality or town or any kind of government operation, it usually takes quite a while to get things done, doesn't it? Am I speaking wrongly here, Danny?
No, you're right.
And my big concern is it's got to be safe before we turn any public loose over there on, because I do not want the town liable for anyone getting hurt over there if they trip and fall in the drainage ditch that's beside the shed or something. That's my big issue. It's got to be safe for the public to be there. And Daniel, where do we stand about? I know we've heard a lot, and I know the Britons have a lot of volunteers lined up and ready to do this stuff, but where is there liability for the town if we have volunteers over there doing something and heaven forbid somebody drops something on their foot or their head or something? So I'm not trying to throw cold water on anything. I'm just trying to, I'm trying to put the town first.
Sure. Right.
In the first spot. And I do not want us to be liable, and I don't want anybody to be hurt either.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got to dot all those I's and
Right.
cross all those T's before we start putting anybody on that piece of property over there.
Do we have waivers that volunteers have used that we've used in the past?
We do. So anytime like when we've done river cleanups or live stakings or trash cleanup days, we do have a waiver that the
Okay.
Parks Department has used. We did not discuss that with Mr. Case specifically. And obviously this goes beyond your general painting and that sort of thing. So I don't know if that's something you want us to look at. That's been.
Yeah, we can talk about that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, John's, he's in the grading business, so he's probably got liability insurance himself. Because anytime you go to digging out around structural piers like that, you kind of need to know what you're doing, because if you go too low, you could reach, and too big, you could actually create it to want to move itself as much wind as we get through here on an open building. So you kind of need to know what you're doing. But I feel John can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Been sitting there for a week or two without the facts.
I agree we need to be safe and, for the residents and for the structures and all that with all our facilities that we have here.
Would you come up so we can hear you, please? It's on Zoom or YouTube.
All right. I'm Rachel Rodriguez, and I'm the manager of the Mills River Farm Market. It sounds like, from my understanding, that we all really want the market to be in where the dairy shed is. Of course, there are a lot of questions about timing and making sure it's safe. But while we kind of wait on these things from the engineer, what steps can we be taking to make this partnership come to fruition? So I'm thinking in terms of the lease we're going to need, because the market, we really try to get as many grant dollars as possible. I think we've discussed before that we probably need a lease before we even can begin to access those dollars. So I'm just thinking of how can we work on things simultaneously while we wait for to, of course, make sure that everything's safe and that we can provide a quality experience.
I would be willing to say a preliminary draft of a lease contract to be drawn up, you know, and awaiting the structural engineer's report. If any construction had to happen, you know, at some point in there, it could probably be signed and released to you. It wouldn't be good forethought to give you a lease so you can work on grant
Right.
and then us not be able to put you there. So we don't have another good place to put you.
Right.
We can't get you right there. You know?
Yeah, yeah, it's more just a question, I guess, for the council to think about and for the town to think about is what, you know, kinds of logistics and paperwork we could be getting ready so that when we do have the go on safety, we're ready to hit the ground running.
I will mention this, you know, my dad, he's 84. We've been around a while. He said that we'll have to come in, if you put it down in that dairy barn, you're gonna have to retrain the people. What are you talking about? He says, well, you're not gonna clean that up as good. You'll never get that place as clean as that school parking lot. So, you know, you need to tell all them people down there, the first time somebody goes home and gets sick, they're gonna be saying E. coli or something, because it's come from a dairy barn. He's old school, and he usually don't think that way and don't say stuff like that. When he says stuff like that, it wakes me up sometimes. You know, he said people probably would have got sick anyway. But he said just the fact that it's located where it is now, as soon as somebody gets sick, it's gonna be a bigger red flag than ever before. Did that just get dropped on this floor, you know, if they pressure wash the clean? You know, he said, he said, that's where he said, I don't know if I could buy a thing out of it. But he's old school like that. That's what he does for a living, as everybody knows. But,
Well, maybe they make a paint that you can put over concrete now that seals it.
yeah,
So that might be a good idea to look into.
everything, there's all kind of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
We just gotta make sure we get the right ones in place.
Right.
But that's where I'm at with it. What else we got? Yeah, anyone forethought in it?
No, I just will emphasize the need to show restraint only because the report from the engineer may come back and the thing needs to be just demolished. And I don't want to see any volunteers spending resources. I don't want the town taxpayer resources to be spent on it until we know what we're working with. And if we clear that first hurdle of it's suitable, but there's a punch list of things that need to be done, we have to look as a council, you know, what those costs are and how to best get that done. And then, of course, second thing is parking. You know, are we going to provide parking, and then how much of it, and where is it going to be, and how long it would take us to get that in place, so we don't infringe on the use of the park in an attempt to find a home for the farm market. So, you know, it's frustrating, I know, because we're so close, but we're still a long way, and you know, the carpet could be pulled out from underneath us just overnight if reports don't come back as we hope. But if they don't, and we do have an opportunity to use that building, then there's still several steps that have to take place, and Randy's touched on a bunch of them. And yeah, we want to do it right the first time. We just don't know, you know, which way this is going to go. It may be, you know, maybe do a U-turn on it, but in terms of if the building's no good, and then what do you do about the concrete, you know, and then, you know, it sort of sends us back to this drawing board. So we'll just have to let it play out.
Nicole, when would you have to know about the soccer for the parking lot, for the parking areas? And, oh, really? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've already been, you know, they've not paid us yet.
Right.
They've turned in their paperwork. Normally how that works is they request the field space.
I see.
As soon as they finish registration and know how many teams they have, then we finalize and then they send in the money. And so they're counting on it, you know, they're taking registration.
Oh,
And there's, as I think you all are well aware, there's a huge soccer field shortage in the county. So it would have a major impact on both Henderson County and ABYSA soccer.
So it starts through March. When does it run through?
It'll run through usually the first week in June. So
while we're right here, I think Sandra called me the other day and said she seen a odd vehicle down at the site. So when I talked to Daniel about it, we probably need to go in and get either a cable up or a swing gate or something. Keep them out. Just staff needs to go down or something. But
Do you want it at the end or you want it at the
for everybody's easy access, probably just here somewhere. I would think. Everybody else on board with that? The staff runs in there, maintenance.
We do, and we're gonna have to do some posting anyway. You know, it's now public lands and people think because we own it that they can use it. We have been running a good number of people off the property.
I'm sure.
Like dogs run, bird watchers, you name it. So it is on my staff's to-do list to make sure it's properly posted that folks should not be back there.
With it being the town's property now, there's no hunting on there, is there?
No, that would be against Chad. No, they're not.
Because I know there's a lot of people like to go down there and bird hunt with guns.
No, it's officially been designated as park land, just like I said.
Anything else on this before we move on? We'll move on to D, your financial dashboard for our last quarter.
So I feel like when I present the quarterly dashboard that I'm being redundant because I'm always telling you we're in really great shape. And we are, for the moment. The easiest way to go over this is to start with your revenues. I think I told you last time, this has been revised a little. Your sales tax revenues includes all your sales tax and utility sales tax. Your property tax includes your real property, your personal property, and your motor vehicles now. Your interest on investments we were warned that interest rates would be going down. They're still holding strong. So our money is making us money, which is exactly what we want. Your PAL bill revenues have come in over budget by over $20,000, which is fantastic news. We had to budget based on what we expected the state to give us, and then they finally passed a budget, and there was more money in there for PAL bills, so we got a bigger slice of that. Your expenditures are pretty much running exactly where we would expect them to. A couple of your departments are over 50% halfway through your year, but for example, you're on fire, that's tax collections to Mills River Fire, so that's a good thing. And your I just had my thought. Information technology is running ahead, but it's a lot of one-time expenditures with what was I'm trying to say? Yes, software renewal licenses and maintenance contracts. While I'm on that side of the page, for Councilmember Austin, who frequently asks, our fund balance estimate is at 83.5 right now. So that's also good news, since your fund balance policy is to keep it between 65 and 75%, but we still have a lot of expenditures that we're anticipating for the year. For example, the playground access grant. We're only getting started on that project, just for one example. On the left side, we've got your operating budget versus your capital budget. Because our budget went up so high this year, and not quite half, I can't remember the amount now. It's over $3 million was capital only. I'm splitting it out so you have a better idea of where the town's money is actually going. Your parkland acquisition funds are spent. The land acquisition funds are spent. Park equipment is doing well. I mean, we purchased everything we had planned to except maybe a mower. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But anyway, that's where things are. Your operating budget reflects what your numbers do, is that you're running about 50% at mid-year, which is where you want it. If anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer. I went through that very quickly.
Sue, right off the top of your head, do you know how much that we have set aside for POW bill money, including this year's, this 23's monies?
I believe it's 433,000 and some change.
Okay. And one other question to Daniel, can that money be used for pathways, walkways on our new property?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You can.
Into the future.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Come on.
That's all.
Anybody else? We'll move on to staff updates and get called up.
Just to touch on that, I think that is awesome because that is state money that's not coming out of the people, the town finances. And that's state money, and we'll be able to use that to help offset some of the cost over here on this park property. So
Okay. We did issue an RFP for audit, for a new audit firm. I've heard from a couple different ones. Not heard from others. That makes me a little nervous. There are very few. The number of audit firms available to municipalities is dwindling. And on my finance listserv, I see requests for audit firms every day. The fact that I've had one ask me questions and one call me with questions is encouraging. So those final responses are due February 28th, hopefully for council to consider first meeting in March. And hopefully we will have someone to
are there any
talk about.
local ones showing interest in that?
The one firm where they called, they have an Asheville office, but the woman who called is vice president and lives in Mills River.
Okay.
Yeah, there are not a lot of local
Yeah.
audit firms, but there are larger ones that have more local offices, usually Asheville. So we will see.
All right.
Sue, if that's all from you, I'm moving on to our legal tax committee.
So if you'll notice, your report was not in your packet on Monday because this is a little bit different report. It's not till the end of a month. It shows all the on-time collections, which anybody who had any payments postmarked the 5th of January or before is considered on time no matter when I get it. So I keep this report open as long as I can. It's quite possible that these numbers will change, and I'll give you an updated report next month. I actually got an on-time payment today that was postmarked December 4th. Wow. From Hendersonville.
Wow.
So it could change, but I'm still pretty pleased. We beat last year's on-time collection rate by 0.01%, but we'll take it. And I think in a reval year, that's pretty good. I'm really, really happy that folks in Mills River still feel like they need and want to pay their taxes on time. As of today, we have less than $170,000 to claim. So we're working on it.
Okay. Nicole, Parks and Rec.
Just give you all a quick, as you all know, we got a lot of rain, which affected us here at the park. We did have a pretty good flood event down in our back loop. There is no major damage, which is good news. My staff has been very busy cleaning up lots and lots of mud, so that is unfortunately taking time. I'm very hopeful we'll be able to get the trail open by tomorrow, so it can be open for the weekend. But just so folks and everybody in the public knows that the rest of the mud under the swings or benches, everything like that will still be a work in progress, get some of that debris. Our main focus has been the trail to get that cleaned up, and we're hoping for the weekend, but we'll see what tomorrow's rain brings.
That's right.
So, yeah, I think that's my only update.
Plan director is, I don't know if Damon's got anything good to have.
Yes, sir. He asked me to make you board aware that the triangle stop, you probably saw today, they knocked down one of the buildings in the corner of the property there. That work is imminent in anticipation of the road project. And Mike is working with the property owners on some redevelopment / modifications to that site so they can stay operational, but that work is coming quickly. Other than that, permits have been steady in terms of lots of commercial review. So it's all good.
Turn it on back over to you then.
I don't have anything additional to update. Just a reminder that we do have a closed session in a moment.
All right, council comments? Anybody got anything?
I had a couple of questions. For the park, for the liability insurance that we have, does the town carry its own liability on that, or do we have a company that carries that?
The town is insured through the North Carolina League of Municipalities program, and we have liability insurance on the entire property, on all the properties.
Okay. And the other day when it flooded, I came down and walked to see what was going on back in the back, and I noticed there was a car plugged into the solar charger and the parking lot was closed, but there wasn't anybody here. Do we still have people coming down and leaving vehicles charged while they are not here during the day?
Not typically. Do you know anything about that Mustang that was plugged in for a little while?
I do not know. Yeah, I don't know specifically. Every once in a while, we find someone who will like drop their car off and then they come back. They have someone pick them up and then they come back later. I don't specifically recall seeing that one, but I don't know. And if I'm not mistaken, through the grant agreement, those charging stations have to be open 24 hours a day, obviously in a safety issue. I think it was here when we closed the parking lot and everything. And then they must have come and got it. I think it was gone that next morning. So.
Yeah. And for a comment, of all the rain we had, everything was inundated with it. The DOT has been doing roadside maintenance and cleaning out culverts and stuff, and I have seen tremendous improvement. Personally, it used to wash my driveway out every time. It didn't this time. They've cleaned out the culverts. They've been cleaning down 191. They cleaned out Mount Gilead Church Road, and it's working fantastic. So kudos to them. They've done a great job. Have y'all still had water on the road up your way?
There's one spot up there that's still pretty bad, but I got down working on that.
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, I know there's still some water getting on 280 down through the 4-lane. It just needs the shoulders cut down for that. But they're doing great strides. It's getting much safer.
Anybody got anything else?
I'm done.
If someone would put us in closed session pursuant to 143-318.11.83.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second the motion.
any discussion? All in favor?
Uh,
Uh,
All right, folks, we're in closed session. Glad to see you.